Welcome back to another video. My name is Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'll be showing you how to stop overthinking, overanalyzing, and how to actually trust the course of your life. Now this video can help transform the way that you think and the way that you identify with what you think. And for me, this is one of the most powerful ideas that really transformed my life. And I'll give a little bit of a backstory. I've explained some of these ideas before, but this was a question that I got asked yesterday in the comments on yesterday's video, and what I want to do is kind of explain it in a way that I think is packaged and is easy to understand. Now, I used to be somebody that was very identified with negative thinking, and it would make me very anxious. And just to give a little bit of a backstory, I went through a lot of pain growing up. I went through a lot of situations, and from that, there are two routes I could have gone. I could have gone down the road of feeling victim, like guilty mentality, like why did this happen, and constantly beat myself up about it. And the other road was the road that I eventually got to, because the pain got so much that I had to learn how to disidentify with the things that have happened, to really feel them and then to let them go and not to let that be my story anymore. And the way that I did that was, I remember I learned how to meditate, and I was so focused on trying to control my thoughts. It was shortly after I learned and watched the movie The Secret, so I'm like, oh, my thoughts are very powerful, they're creating my kind of experiences. So that's when I started to, in a way, like sabotage myself, because I was so focused on controlling. But what I found is the more that I tried to control what I was thinking, the more that it actually resisted, the more that I actually was like me versus me. It was like there was almost just resistance that was naturally building. But I remember about 2 or 3 days into meditating, I began to just simply observe my thoughts. It was almost like there's the reactive mind, and there's this spot that we could get into. There's this little bit of space where we can observe that reactive mind. We can learn to observe what we're thinking of. And I remember that it was a paradox, because as I wasn't trying to control my mind, as I was just observing the thoughts that would flow into my mind, they would come in, they would go out, they would eventually start to slow down. So the key to this is understanding that this is not about controlling your mind, that if you try to control, that will build resistance. Instead, allow the thoughts to be there and observe them from a neutral place. Now, in order to understand the neutral place, I've used this analogy before, but imagine that you are sitting at a park, on a park bench, and you are just there observing your surroundings, just relaxing. If you watch people walk by, you're just observing them walk by. You're not judging them, you're not putting labels to them, and if you do have the mind puts a label on them, you're not identified with it. You're just observing what's happening. Now, in the way that a dog might walk by you, you would just observe the dog walking by. You wouldn't try to follow the dog. You wouldn't try to control the way the dog is moving. And the same way, treat the thoughts the same way. Don't try to control the thoughts that come into the mind. Just watch them as they go through. Just allow them to be there. And the paradox is that in allowing them to be there, eventually they will go away more and more. Now think of your mind in the neural networks of how we think in the form of momentum. When we give momentum to the way that we're thinking, when we give identification with those thoughts, we are strengthening the neurocircuitry in our brain. We are making it have more and more power over us. But the moment we observe those thoughts, the moment we start to neutralize the charge of that momentum, then we can put it in the direction of where we want to go. So the key to this overanalyzing and overthinking is observation. And understand, it might feel a little bit hard at first, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. For me, it took a couple times of meditating before I got just a taste of it. It was like I did it, and like a day or two later, I did it again, and it was a little bit easier to get to that space. You'll find there's also a feeling that comes with this. And a simple technique to really get out of overthinking is to bring the awareness not to the intellectualness, not to the head. Bring it into the body by feeling into your sense perceptions. That means put the awareness into your hands, put the awareness into your chest, into your legs. Just simply put the awareness there. Think about it. And as you think about feeling from that, it brings the awareness to where then you can't be over-identified with thinking. Now, a lot of the techniques I share in this video came from a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And it's very powerful because it's so simple. It is really so simple. But think about it. The mind wants complex strategies, complex techniques. And that's why most of what I share on this channel, I try to break these complex ideas into the most simple way we could possibly understand it, because then it's practical. Then we can apply it. And the next time you find yourself with a momentum of overthinking, start to observe the thoughts. Let them be there. Don't resist it. Allow it and watch how with time they begin to lessen more and more. And you get to this space of observation that is a very good feeling. That's what they call presence. You become present to the moment. Now, the other part of this is letting go of the self-image and the label of you being somebody that overthinks and somebody that overanalyzes. When you think of yourself, do you put the label on yourself of I overthink too much and I overanalyze? And if you do, it's okay. But realize you can start to view yourself as this person that's able to observe. And as you observe that part of yourself, you will start to feel that that is who you are. You can let go of the labels and start to really let go of that emotional baggage that comes with it. And you can start to identify with being somebody that responds rather than reacts. There is a huge difference in that. Now, another part of this is understanding that if there's something we want to create, if there's something we want to experience and we overanalyze it, we build resistance and we actually create a barrier to us experiencing it. Realize that anytime we overanalyze, what we're saying is we don't trust in the natural course of our life. We don't trust in our greater self and being able to make this happen. We need our ego, which is a very small part of ourself, to control everything. Then the ego is trying to do something that's not its job. The job of the ego is to focus. The job of the ego is to decide what it does and doesn't want, but it's not the only part of ourselves. The idea is that we can realize that the more we overthink and over-identify with our thinking, the more we're not trusting in the larger scope of what we can accomplish and really who we are. Realize the job of your ego is to simply focus, but to understand that that's not just who you are. If you put the trust in the larger part of yourself by trusting the process of your life, everything will begin to change. You won't be so identified with that thinking because you'll observe the egoic thoughts. You'll observe that reaction mind, and you'll start to then actually observe it from a point of response. That's where the biggest change can be, and one of the biggest changes that's been made in my life is realizing that in the moment of stimulus, in the moment of thought, there's a small space. And in that space, you can decide that that is a part of who you are or that's not a part of who you are. You can decide to think more of it or to think less of it. And in that moment, you can observe it, and that will neutralize everything. So the most powerful technique that you can apply is to simply observe your thoughts, bring the awareness from the head and into the body, feel into it, and then simply trust the course of your life, and knowing that everything will happen the way it's meant to happen, and your job is to simply decide what things mean to you and decide to be present to the moment. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you guys on the next vid. Peace, much love, namaste. Alright, bye.